2,000 years ago, Jesus, told his followers to go into the world and make disciples, and he told them to teach people all that he had commanded and all that he had taught, to pass it on. And the Bible talks about all tribes and nations and languages and people. Of course, for a lot of history, it was not possible to get to much of the world, and even if you could get there, people speak literally thousands of languages. And so the practical challenge to go and actually tell people about Jesus, much less passing on his words, is something that was very motivating but sort of unrealistic. But actually today it is happening, which is sort of the core of this story. January of 2000, a friend who was a Bible translator in Nigeria, I didn't even know where that was, had been there for years, gone to the other side of the world. He's back on furlough in Beaverton. We're sitting at a Starbucks, some friends drinking coffee, and he says, I've been translating the Bible for 6-7 years. We finished the Gospel of Luke now. We created a writing system for these people. It was an unspoken language. We think there's 50 or 60,000 people that live off in these hills on the other side of rivers. Even the chiefs of the tribe don't know where the villages are. They don't know how many people there are. But we now have this language. We've created a reading and writing primer. There's a chance to teach them to read. And we have the Gospel of Luke. And we have this movie made from the Gospel of Luke. It's the whole life of Jesus, the words of the Bible, the Jesus film. And we have it, and we want to show it to these people. And we've got all of ourselves, the missionaries, and all these Nigerian guys and men and women. We have no idea what to do. We don't have any equipment. We don't know how to do these kind of logistics. We don't know where any of this stuff is. Is there anybody that could grab some people and some friends and he says it's January and I have to fly back to Nigeria. Is there anybody that could grab some people and show up there next November when the rain stopped so we can take this Jesus film and the Gospel of Luke out to all these people? And all I remember, it seemed to me like everybody else in the room was just sort of glazed over and looking out the window. And I just felt this thing just hit me. This is what all of the last 40 years, 50 years, I guess at that point, was for. And I thought, this is what I do. Everything he said was like, yeah, well, what else do you need, He's like, oh yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to tackle. And I thought, this is it. All the experiences I've had have set it up so I could just, I didn't know anything about it, but okay, get on the plane, go over there and figure it out. And so grabbed 10 friends, and a number of which actually, some of you know Dave Mosier, for example, some of which are in exactly the same situation as myself, and so we headed over there. Turns out, of course, the Jesus film is this video, and you schlep gear on your shoulders, you truck out in the middle of nowhere, you put up these screens and you show this movie, and all of a sudden, hundreds and thousands of people are hearing Jesus speaking in their language, and the response every time. By the way, the name of the language that we started with is called Izere, I-Z-E-R-E, and these people were just jumping up and screaming, Yesu fe Izere! Jesus speaks Izere. And one woman came up and she said, if Jesus speaks Izere, maybe that means when I pray to him, he'll understand me. And that statement actually has been made by many people all over the world. That's a very, again, it's like this upside down kind of a response. What happened was, I've now been to Nigeria 17 times since the year 2000. And by going and going and going and going, I started getting just immersed in working, what do Bible translators do? What is language all about? What about all these heart languages, these minor languages? What does it mean to be illiterate and impoverished? Or what does it mean to be, from, middle of Africa and living in a city and being a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it happens to be, right? So meeting people and working together. And what was happening was, I wasn't there in any kind of an official role, but when I'd be sitting in a room with 12 people and they had far more experience than me, the Nigerians there, understanding their own culture, being passionate about serving the Lord, all of a sudden in their life, they don't really know much about logistics. They really don't know much about technology. They don't know much about the things that I know about. And I don't know much about what they do, but we'd be sitting at a table, and I have a picture that's like this table here. There's all these people, and there's an empty chair. And I would come in, and they'd all be deliberating. They'd be working for months and working on something. It's like they just couldn't break through. And then I would sit in the chair, and it's like, oh, I would say one thing that would be obvious to me, and they're going, oh yeah, of course, that's what we need. I'd go back home, and off they would go. And of course, as I listened to all of them, many times the stuff they were saying, I would think, gosh, I've never thought of things that way before. I'd come back to my own business, back to Axion, and apply those ideas. And so this concept that God brings us together in our life experiences and our perspectives to do things that otherwise are not really going to be possible. Next thing you know, there's this opportunity to be hanging out with chiefs and leaders and at the legislature, national legislature in Nigeria and Abuja, and not as an advisor in the sense of, all kinds of things, tell us what to do, but really just hanging out and kicking stuff around, listening to each other, sharing perspective. Then came the cell phone. Then came the cell phone. And then came smartphones. And for the majority of the world, they never had landlines, and they never had ways to communicate. And all of a sudden, people started pouring in the money to create these cellular networks way before they were developed well in the US. I was getting better cell signals in the middle of Nigeria than I was in my own bedroom. And all of a sudden, people in the middle of the villages started popping out these phones and talking to each other. And, here's a great statistic. This was done back in 2011. People kept saying, are there more cell phones or toothbrushes? And so this particular study actually found that by 2011, there are more active cell phones in the world than toothbrushes in use. Whatever it was, 3.5 billion toothbrushes, 4.6 billion mobile phones, cell phones at that time, world population 6.8 billion. Now this is 2011. 2013, the number of phones becomes 6.8 billion out of 7 billion people, right? We're 200 million short of one per person. But look at China with 1.2 billion phones for 1.3 billion people. Look at India, 900 million phones. Look at Nigeria with 167 million active phones in Nigeria alone. The Nigerians started saying, when the language comes, when you have a language and the translation comes, and the Bible and the literacy and the discipleship materials and the reading and writing primers and all these things come, it's like you're building a wheel. It's like the language is the hub. And a couple of spokes, you have 3 spokes, you can kind of build a wobbly wheel that you can kind of roll down the street with your chickens tied to the handlebars. A couple more spokes, and you might be able to sit on it and push down the street with your feet. This is really how they do things. But you get enough spokes, and you get that thing aligned. Next thing you know, you're off to the next city. And they kept drawing these diagrams of the wheel with the spokes. And so this word Kolo is an old word meaning the wheel. And so we formed Kolo Group, and you can even see the wobbly wheel becomes the smooth running wheel in the logo. And so here, all of a sudden, that picture over there, I love it. These guys all cheering and yelling. Those people in 2012 are the same ones that 12 years earlier, as young, college-age students and stuff, that we first showed the Jesus film with. Now, they're lawyers, they're pastors, they're leaders in the community. One of the guys has gone on to become a congressman at national level, etc. Here they are it's out in the patio, one of the guys in Jos, Nigeria, with iPads and phones and everything else. That is the moment when the app first came alive in Nigeria. They're yelling and screaming. What they're really doing is they're arguing whose language we're going to listen to first. Play Izere. No, play Hausa. No, play Mugavul. No, play Birome. And we were back in the US side, actually in this room, sitting there, talking to them, listening to what they were doing, and the whole thing came alive. It was an amazing moment. I'm going to play a video for you which really sort of kicks off the next piece of this.
Imagine that you are this man.
Imagine you are me.
This is your family. This is your home. This is your village. And this is your phone. Months ago, you witnessed something that forever changed your life. Something beyond words. You tried to share that experience with your family. You tried to learn more. You tried to grow. You were handed materials to help with these things, but you would first have to learn how to read. And as time moved forward, that life-altering experience was reduced to a distant memory. It wasn't because you didn't try. It wasn't because you didn't believe. It was simply because you did not have the proper resources to grow. Today, a missionary has returned to your village, but this time he does not have a projector, a movie screen, or a sound system. He has a phone. Now, in your hands, you hold the resources to grow, to better understand truth, to share with the ones you love. This is the impact of Kolo mobile apps.
So there's a number of different mobile apps now. Many of you may use, for example, the Bible app down there on the lower right. How many of you have a Bible app of some type on your phones? Okay, could be Bible, could be the Holy Bible, could be a number of the other ones. And the Jesus Film Media app, which is one of those, provides then access to a catalog full of all these different videos. The Jesus Film itself is a Gospel of Luke. It's about a 2-hour movie, but it's broken down into 60 different small segments, 2 to 3 minutes apiece. You know how the Bible's set up so that there's paragraph headings? Jesus teaching on the Beatitudes, Jesus, and the great parable of the Good Samaritan. So the movie is broken up that way, so people can just pass around these 2 or 3 minute clips and listen to them.
A sower went out to sow his seed. And as he scattered the grain, some of it fell by the path and was trodden on. And the birds of the air devoured it. And some fell on rocky ground.
Itafatang ni kor kamok karami bi bendi dangba. Ikak pas kaya rekritan. Ni kritan rasak magbiba ni kutanangba. Ikak pas ni benitek.
生长起来，开花结果，结实百倍。种子就是上帝的道。落在路旁的种子，如同人听了道。
بصح ابليس يجي وينحي الكلمه من قلوبهم هكذا ما يكونوش عندهم الايمان وما يسلكوش. اللي في الحجر هما اللي كيسمعوا الكلمه يقبلوها بفرحه. بصح هما بلا عروق يمنوا برك مده قليله وفي وقت التجربه راهم يبعدوا. الزراع اللي طاح في الشوك.
They went here. But the wahala with money plus enjoyment of this life can't swallow them. And their fruit not come ripe. And the seed when fall for good ground, stand for people when hear God's word and keep them inside their heart and can't fear God. And can't hear them until they bring fruit.
These are free apps which you can download yourself, and you can watch any of these and you'll see what we're talking about. One of the other apps is a typical Bible app. It's translated into like 800 different languages. It has text, it has audio. So what we were asked to do in Kolo Group is then to create an app which allows people who are illiterate, oral people, all over the world to find their language. Because by the way, you can walk up to, literally I walked up to one person and said, "What's the name of your language?" "Mbari." "Could you spell that for me?" Mari. How in the world do you find that language? Is anything available in it? No. Right? So a Ghanaian man, friend from Ghana, said, hey, listen, everybody knows what their flag looks like because it's the color of their soccer uniform, their football uniform. So let them find their flag, and then, so we give them an app that starts with the regions of the world. You find your flag, you choose your country, and then what comes up are all the languages in that country, and these small speakers, when you touch one, it plays out 10 seconds of someone speaking that language. So literally, the person that I was talking to about Mari was in Nigeria. We went through, and all of a sudden we found, we played one language. Is that Mari? No. Another one. All of a sudden we found something spelled G-B-A-R-I, and we touched it, and out came the words. That's my language. So you touch the language, and what happens over there on the far right is what pops up are what we call the spokes. These are all the different sources of media content, the different Bibles, the different videos and so forth that are available in your language. In this case, you choose Jesus Film Media Catalog, and it opens up. And then another one called Community Health brings you information, for example, about stopping the source of coughing or diarrhea or cholera or things like this. Farming information, how to treat cowpeas, which we call black-eyed peas, one of the most common beans grown in the world. How can you treat them and make them free of disease using only free solar, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a way to, from a holistic point of view, bring together the community health and the spiritual. And so you pick your video and you play it. And so same thing with the audio Bible. If you chose an audio Bible, you can play it. But more importantly, not just play, because in most of the world the internet isn't strong. Rather, download the video or download to the Bible chapter into your phone. So now when you have the internet, you load this thing up into a library. You can create playlists, just like you might do with English, that puts things together in multiple languages, and then you can head off to go work with people, whether that's coming from here, America, going to another place, or you just happen to be somebody that lives in Beijing. It's going to load up their phone, and they're going to go out and meet their friends out in the town. And so, well, that's great if you have a smartphone, but one of the things that we've been asked to prototype, and literally just went live here about 2 weeks ago, is the ability to now take those videos and just using Bluetooth, ship them right over to a regular old dumb cell phone. So that's what we're demonstrating here. You need one smartphone, take a particular video, and you can pop it off, and there's your old cheap. That's the other 7 billion of those phones. You can now start moving these short video clips or these audio Bibles off there. Interestingly enough, I just mentioned this experimental work with moving between smartphone and cell phone. The people that are doing the experimental work on the ground are all the Nigerians in Jos, right? The same people that we were working with 14 years ago are now the ones leading the way in the villages in all these different languages, because in Nigeria there are 500 languages. Only about 40 or 50 are written languages, but 500 actively spoken by 160 million people in a country that's about the size of some of our states here.
In the northeastern part of Nigeria, where we are working strongly now, the security challenge poses great risks of penetrating those crisis areas. For instance, in Adamawa State, our experience has been that when we trained the people, Boko Haram will come back behind us and destroy the churches. This is the experience we had in Uganda. 2 days after the training, they went back to the church and burned it down. In the traditional way that we used to show the film into those communities, you can't gather people around to show the film in the open. The Boko Haram will use that as a very clear opportunity to just come and wipe the people away. But thanks to the digital age, which very well match this current challenge, Because with our handsets, our tablets, loaded with the Jesus film, loaded with the Walking with Jesus, loaded with the Magdalena, and then move into these communities and deliver it to the people home to home. We share it with the people in their homes and then continuing with follow-up and discipleship. These tools have made ministry now easy.
I mean, that says, isn't that powerful? Isn't that amazing? So I've spent so many days and weeks and years, I guess, with Beatrice. All of a sudden, people in other countries said, hey, we're hearing about what's going on in Nigeria. Can you come? Steve, come to Guinea-Bissau and work with us there. Tell us what's going on. Beatrice, come to Ethiopia. Derek, come to Kenya. Come to Uganda. Come to Rwanda, et cetera, et cetera. Come to Mali. Dave, again, some of you know Dave Mosier. Dave and Paul Slanker jumped in trucks with these guys, drove across northern Nigeria, drove across Niger, Burkina Faso, into Ghana. This is the Muslim part of the world, and they are hungry for the gospel. They are hearing the truth and embracing it, very thankfully, but they're hearing it for the first time. They've never known it. They've never heard the words of Jesus, unfiltered, flat out, this is what he said. One of the leaders in Egypt, I met him at a conference in Nigeria. He said, listen, every 2 years there's a book fair in Cairo. 2 million Arabic-speaking people come from all of the Arabic-speaking countries of the Middle East. It's the largest gathering in the world. Can you please take your Kolo app, Kolo World app, and put a button just called Arabic? Just put a shortcut. All they have to do is install it, touch it, bam, there's everything in Arabic. No funny business of going through flags or anything, so we did. And this happens to be a booth that they put up posters and said, here's a free app. You just load it up and touch Arabic, and you've got all these videos you can watch in your language. So then next thing that happened is people started calling from, where have I been? Philippines and Thailand, Korea, Japan, and others going off into all different parts of the world. One of the most fascinating ones, they met up with an organization for 30 years. I've always heard about the Korean church, or tremendous mission outreach church. I've never known anything about it. Ended up in the middle of Korea with an organization that's 30 years old. They have 2,000 people on the ground, living underground in all of the hot spots across the 1040 window in Asia. And they train and send 4,000 short-term people a year. They've been doing this for 30 years. They met up with it. They found about this. And when I was there a couple weeks ago, one of the leaders came up and he said, this is so intuitive and so organic to everything that God has called us to, that having these tools is going to upgrade our ministry to a level that's been impossible. We now can go and communicate with and bring the words of Jesus to every nation and tribe and language in the world. We localized the app completely in Chinese. In fact, we've localized it into 11 languages: Turkish and Hindi and Chinese and Japanese and Korean and Arabic. So what happens now is that this is accessible to people in China. So they can get to this. And we're not, I'm not physically going into China, but people that are in China, the word is spreading that you now have access to this. And it isn't just in Mandarin, I think these films are now in something like 15 different Chinese dialects, plus many of the other minor dialects, Uyghur and all of these other ones. And of course, in the Mongol languages, all the way across that whole area. So part of the issue, and a simple answer, is making God's word accessible to people so they can actually hear it, see it and hear it, is sort of the side of it that we're on. Right? And then you've got these other different mission agencies that are deeply on the ground, going all the way back to the time of Open Doors and others, that when they're smuggling Bibles, now it's a matter of, you don't have to smuggle anything, just tell people, hey, go check out the store and download this thing and you've got it. So even when I say, what's next? Well, I don't know the details, but I absolutely know, I can see all these threads then coming together. All the time of preparation that I've gone through and things I've done have set it up to be able to participate in actually just doing this, right? So Jesus said, All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Bam, he lays it down. And then he says to his followers, therefore, go. No restraint, right? Therefore, because all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, which of course means they have to be able to hear it and understand it. Surely, I'm with you always to the very end of the age. There it is, right? So there's the Great Commission. You know, sort of excitedly waiting to see what does the next 20 years, 2 years or 20 years, whatever it is, look like. What you just look for is Kolo, K-O-L-O, world.